Looking forward to watching you in action. Please look, ask Whitmore if they're going to support the wall. I'll see you later.
Good evening. My name is Alan Wiley, President of the National Pan-Atlantic Council of Greater Atlanta and a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, and the NPAC of Greater Atlanta, we welcome you to the Mayoral Forum. Why are we here today? We are here today because you matter, your vote matters. We want our community to have a conversation with the candidates so that we can be informed and educated voters when we enter the polls. By you being here, we want to recognize you for your participation in the political process. We thank you. Secondly, we are here today because through the years, the historically Black fraternities and sororities have been instrumental in being a voice and a force in the communities in which we serve. Through the National Pan-Atlantic Council, we have strength in numbers. I would like to recognize the chapter presidents for their servant leadership to the chapters within the council. If the chapter presidents would please stand and be recognized. We are also here today because our partnering organizations, the League of Women Voters, and the NAACP, they continue to lead the effort and bringing together our communities so that we can discuss the issues. I would like to recognize the executive boards of both the League of Women Voters and the NAACP, the executive boards of both organizations, if you would please stand and be recognized. are any elected officials present, would you please stand and be recognized? The planning of this event was a collaborative effort, and I would like to recognize the planning committee, Marcus Garner, Gerald Griggs, Cecilia Houston, Michael Hudson, Beverly Isom, Kimberly King, Ray McClinton, and myself. Please stand and be recognized. We thank you for your attendance, and we'll turn the meeting over to the president of the League of Women Voters.
Good evening. Good evening. Can everyone hear me, even in the back?
Yes.
Yes, okay, well, thank you all for joining us tonight. We're so happy to have you here with us. And it is my great pleasure today as president of the League of Women Voters to introduce you to our journalist panel. My name is Carlise Greer, and I'm happy to be with you here tonight on this historic evening. Now, we have a great panel of journalists. They have combined over 10 decades, not years, 10 decades of experience. So I think that deserves a round of applause. Our moderator tonight is Tom Jones. Tom is a native of Houston, Texas, and has reported the news in Amarillo, Texas, Shreveport, Louisiana, and Las Vegas, Nevada. He has worked at WSB-TV as a general assignment reporter for nearly a decade and considers himself a news junkie. He enjoys covering crime and court stories. Let's give Tom a hand. Our journalist panelists for this evening are, starting at the very end, Crystal Edmondson. Crystal is a very versatile communicator and broadcast journalist who takes a high-energy approach to keep viewers engaged. Let's give Crystal a hand. Next, we have Keisha Lanceland. Keisha is the Public Affairs Director at CW69 WUPA and is the host of Focus Atlanta each Sunday at noon. Thank you. Next, we have Stan Washington. Stan is a contributing editor at the Atlanta Daily Voice and is responsible for the production of the weekly newspaper and oversees the daily production of the company's social media outlets. Thank you for being here, Stan. And last but not least, we have Ernie Suggs. Ernie has been a reporter at the AJC since 1997 and is currently covering a variety of breaking news and investigative stories for Page A1. He previously reported for newspapers in New York City and Durham. Thank you all for being with us, and with that, I will turn it over to Tom. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. It's rather instructive that they always feed the moderator before we get started, and I have to come out here and they feed you something green in the back. Any green in my teeth? I want to be comfortable up here. In all seriousness, I want to thank, this room is packed. I love it. I mean, it shows that you're actively involved in who will lead your city government. That means a lot. So give yourselves a round of applause for being here. You know, we live in a great city. Sure, we have a collapse every now and then. Outfits on Highway 85. But what? We always rise. We have a long history of rising. So we are here tonight to begin the process of determining which candidate will rise up and lead Atlanta as its next mayor. And we briefly touched on this before, but I want to give a round of applause for the sponsor of this forum. It's so important. The National Hellenic Council of Greater Atlanta, the NAACP Atlanta branch, and the League of Women Voters of Atlanta, Fulton County. How about giving them a nice round of applause? Before I introduce the candidates, there are some housekeeping matters we must attend to. While many of you may love Jermaine Dupree's Welcome to Atlanta's ringtone, not tonight. Please turn off your phones right now, silence them, because we don't want to interrupt this forum. We ask that the audience please be respectful of the candidates and allow their responses to be heard without interruption. Let's bring the candidates to the stage. Our first candidate is Peter Amon. Al Bartel. Keisha Lynn Bottoms. John Leeds. Vincent Ford. Carpenter Hall. LeBron King. Caesar Mitchell. Michael Sterling. And Kathy Woolver. Now, before we assembled the candidates here, we met in the back and I went over with them some rules of engagement. I'll tell you what they are briefly. The candidates were asked to please address their responses to the audience only. We ask that there be no personal attacks. Answers must be 60 seconds and be mindful, candidates, of the timekeepers sitting here. We will have an opening and a closing statement. Both of those statements will be 60 seconds. Our journalist panel will ask questions from 3 categories. The first category is economic development, gentrification. The second is traffic and infrastructure. And the third is city ethics and public safety. Our panel will ask the candidate a question from one of the categories. Then the panel will ask the next candidate a question from a different category. Toward the end of the forum, we will take questions from selected members of the audience. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond. Everybody got it? On the same page? Let's get the show on the road. And we'll begin with the first question. Ernie, would you like to start? I'm sorry. We need to do the introductions first. And we'll do those in alphabetical order. So let's go with Peter Amon.
Good evening. Okay, everybody else needs to do it again. Good evening. Good evening. Okay, I'm just following pattern and practice here. I'm so pleased to be here tonight. I very much appreciate the invitation, the ability to talk with all of you, to answer your questions, answer the panelists' questions. We are obviously off of Metropolitan Avenue here, Metropolitan Parkway. How many of you remember when it was Stewart? Okay, so it was Stewart back up until about 1996, and it was changed because of a reputation Stewart Avenue had. And it has improved. But there's a lot more promise and potential to this area. If I am the next mayor of Atlanta, we're going to have fair and equitable growth across the entire city of Atlanta, so that there's development throughout the city while maintaining affordability, while not displacing people, and so that everybody shares fairly in the progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bartel.
Hi, everybody. My name is Al Bartel. I'm a certified mediator in the area of public policy management for the last 20 years. I've supported advocating for community engagement with the 7 standing committees of the Atlanta City Council, the 25 neighborhood planning units, and of course the 12 city council districts. If elected as mayor, I promise to establish a city government based on customer service, communication, economic development, and environmental sustainability. It is now time that we must have a government where neighborhood, community, faith, and small business leaders have a seat at the table where the decisions are being made to the same degree as lobbyists, special interest groups, and corporations. Peter just talked about this area, and we think this area is threatened by destructive gentrification. It is now time that we establish a mayor who's committed that a rising tide lifts all boats. My name is Al Bartell, and I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ashbrook.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank my God, that is, for my unconquerable soul. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Like so many of you, I learned the words to Invictus while pledging Delta Sigma Theta on the campus of Florida A&M University. Over 20 years later, like pledging, I understand the meaning of this poem. And what it means is that as mayor, I cannot wait for someone else to determine the future of my children, my community, nor of my city. I am Keisha Lance Bottoms, and I look forward to having your support.
Thank you, Mr. Eves.
Good evening, everybody. Once again, I'm John Eves, and the bottom line, folks, is what sets me apart from the folks who are on the stage with me is leadership. They're followers, and I'm a leader. Atlanta deserves a leader. Atlanta deserves a leader. For the past 10 years, I have had the wonderful pleasure and honor of serving as the chairman of the largest local government in the state of Georgia. I represent 1.1 million residents. I've overseen a $1 billion budget. I work with the mayors of 14 cities, and I have delivered results. During my tenure, we have changed and transformed Grady Hospital, saved it from closing down in 2008, 2009. We've reformed the criminal justice system. We got from underneath the consent decree. We reduced the jail population of bookings by 50%. I worked with the mayors for the past 2 years to bring on a successful transportation splosh that will generate $655 million over the next 5 years. Atlanta deserves a mayor who is a leader, who has a proven track record. And my friends, I believe on that person.
Thank you, Mr. Ford.
My name is Vincent Ford. I want to tell you why I'm running for mayor. I'm running for mayor because I think City Hall has lost its way. I believe that City Hall has lately been more concerned with enriching themselves than with serving the people, than serving you. It's unfortunate but true that City Hall cares more about billionaires and mega projects than it does neighborhoods and regular folk. That's why I'm running. I'm familiar with Metropolitan Parkway. I'm familiar with this campus. I've got $45 million in the budget for these two campuses, Atlanta Technical College, Atlanta Metropolitan College, so that children who might not be able to go to school in any other place can go to school here and get a job and a career and take care of themselves. That's what City Hall has forgotten, that it's regular people that make Atlanta great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hall.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I'm Kwanzaa Hall, Atlanta City Council member, District 2. I've been elected for the last 15 years, representing downtown, Midtown, Old Fourth Ward, Emmett Park. And we've been working with people, rich and poor, black and white, gay and straight, of all walk of life, to get things done in the heart of the city. Old Fourth Ward 15 years ago looked just like Metropolitan. We had every issue, every challenge that you can imagine. But now we made it a shining example of non-displacement revitalization with all types of restaurants, shops, and everything that we deserve to have in a neighborhood. I grew up on the west side of town. I went to Mays High School. I lived just a few blocks from here on Beale Avenue. I want to do the same things on the west side of town as mayor of this city. And who knows, maybe my wife and I, she's right down in the audience now, might move to the west side, maybe to the Fluff, Vine City, or Metropolitan, and show what we can do by actually putting our money where our mouth is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Mr. King.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, let's say my name correctly, Laban. Everybody say Laban.
Laban.
Okay, Laban. That's what she's saying. So, notice on this stage, I'm the only one that's never been elected or appointed to any position. I haven't had any big fundraisers. I haven't spent a lot of money on my campaign. I'm able to sit on this stage because I was invited, because of my message and my message alone. I've used my social media to let everyone know what I stand for and my plans. Atlanta right now is just like fondant cake. It looks good, but it tastes nasty. And the reason is because the growth in Atlanta, a lot of you in this room are not experiencing it. A lot of people are struggling. And so I want to bring a face to the persons that want to make change in the city. It's time that we have someone that represents us, and that I'm that person, and I'll show that tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Laban King. Mr. Mitchell.
Good evening. It's great to see you all here. I'm very encouraged by the number of people who are here. This gives me the hope and belief that our city is going to move in the right direction. The only way that Atlanta is going to go from being a special city to a great city is if we all do it together. If we all recommit to working one another to make sure that we are addressing the critical issues that are facing our community. I was born and raised right here in this city. I live one neighborhood over. I won't have to move here. This city is important to me. The children of this city are important to me. We've got to make our communities safer. We've got to provide jobs and opportunities for citizens in the community. If you are an entrepreneur, you've got to know that your dreams can be fulfilled, and we've got to make sure that we have a path to success for everyone. The Atlanta train is moving down the track. We cannot leave people behind.
Thank you. Mr. Sterling.
First of all, I just want to thank our host for having us here tonight. Thank my fellow candidates for being here. My name is Michael Sterling. My life started...
This mic is not on or something.
My name is Michael Sterling. My life started at the Lutheran Social Services Orphanage. And I was fortunate enough to have this social worker who cared deeply about me. And when your life starts in those circumstances, you understand the importance of public service. I went on to Morehouse College, where I pledged the Pi chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi. Graduated, went to law school, graduated with honors, worked at Sidney Austin, the same law firm where Michelle Obama, Barack Obama worked. Became one of the youngest federal prosecutors in the country, appointed by the first African-American Attorney General, Eric Holder. Became the senior advisor to the mayor at the age of 29 and ran the workforce development agency where I sent hundreds of kids to this very college, Atlanta Technical College, at the age of 32. And I did that not because of me, but because I had somebody who was in public service who cared enough about my circumstances to make a difference. And I think we sometimes lose that in our politics. And so I decided to run for mayor because I understand the importance of public service. And it's time for us to get back to what matters the most to people. Making sure we are caring about people, making sure that we're doing the right things by the people who live in this city, by families and by children. God bless you. Look forward to the conversation tonight. Thank you so much.
Ms. Wooler.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here. Thank you all for being here. I know it's difficult to get through the traffic and come here at the end of the day. So like all the other candidates, we just appreciate you being here because it means a lot to us as we embark on this journey together. I think Atlanta's at a crossroads. I think you think Atlanta's at a crossroads, or you probably wouldn't be here tonight. We can decide if we're going to be a world-class international city or if we're going to fall short of that mark. And I think at this point in time, we've got to make a real commitment to go there. In my mind, we have to protect and sustain our environment, our tree canopy, our waterways, to make sure we have clean air for our children now and as they grow up. We have to preserve and protect our neighborhoods. I think our neighborhoods are under as much threat as they've ever been from all kinds of things, gentrification among other things. And we want to make sure that the families who want to live, work, and play here have the ability to do that anywhere in the city that they want to be. And finally, I think that we have to remain committed to our heritage as a city that provides opportunity for everyone. I'm that candidate. I'm committed to those ideals, and I look forward to talking to you as the night goes on about some specifics.
Thank you, Ms. Wooler. That wraps up our opening statements. Candidates, is anyone having trouble seeing the timer here? Is that an issue? Or you're just ignoring. Do you need her to be repositioned?
No, all they do is tell them where it is.
All right, we will move on to the next portion of the forum. Our journalist panel will now question the candidates. We'll start with Ernie Suggs. And let me remind the candidates, the responses are 60 seconds. Or less.
All right, I'll try to yell. I want to start this question with Mr. Eames.
Microphone.
Audio guy. Hello? Hello?
When it's green, it's on.
Hello? Yeah, there you go. All right, I want to start this question with Mr. Eames.
Just talk loud.
Mr. Mitchell said that the Atlanta train is moving down the track. And I think he was speaking metaphorically, but you mentioned that you were a leader among followers. So it took me an hour to get down here. I didn't have a chance to take a train because there's no train that comes down here. I don't think. So as a leader in Fulton County, what have you done to address traffic? And as a mayor, what will you do to address this horrible traffic situation that finds itself in?
Certainly, fair question. So what have I done? First, the facts. There are 2 million cars that come in and out of Atlanta on a daily basis. In 2012, I was a part of a 21-member roundtable of elected officials in the 10-county area that developed a regional transit map. I was at the table. I was a part of the conversation. There's something called Concept 3 that calls for regional transit expansion. As chairman of Fulton County, I've also worked with the mayors of Fulton County to develop a transportation plan for the entire Fulton County area. I've been at the table. I led the charge. I'm committed as the mayor of Atlanta to build out the transportation plan that's already in place with transit expansion throughout Fulton County and the region, including building out the Beltline, having connectivity between the Beltline and MARTA going to Gwinnett County and Cobb County. So I've been at the table in terms of the map, in terms of the relationships, and I'm committed to actualizing the plan that's already in place.
Anybody else want to follow up on that?
Follow?
Yeah. Let me rephrase. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
The reference point, Ernie, is how do we begin to look at it?
What's up with the microphone?
Microphone is not on.
What's up?
What we can begin to consider, Ernie, is how do we begin to look at the leadership that's been demonstrated in order to put together a workforce, in order to put together public policy that can establish a city government, not a county government, not a state government, but a city government. And the way we have to do that is shift the policy decision-making process from lobbyists, special interest groups, and corporations designing the budget of City Hall and put it back into the hands of the citizens. We have the technology to do it. We can establish a technology base in every city council district and have people participate in the budget. If we do that, then we can design a customer service, a communication, economic development, and transportation management that is real for the 435,000 people who live in the city of Atlanta.
Our next question from Stan.
Thank you. We're back on? Back on? Testing? 1, 2.
Turn the volume
Test
up.
1, 2. Let's see, I have a question for Senator Ford. I'm going to go ahead and ask it, and maybe you can repeat it to the people.
Okay.
Okay, the question is, how will you help MARTA continue to grow and be on par with other transportation systems in other major cities? And also, how will you get the state to finally become a part of this whole regional transportation issue that we have?
The question is, how will Senator Ford get MARTA to be on par with other major metropolitan areas and their transportation systems? And how will he help increase state funding to get funding from the region?
Great question. One, I have already, I introduced after 2012, after the failure of the regional SPLOS, T-SPLOS, I introduced a bill which would allow for local T-SPLOS. And the fact is that the state legislature passed a local T-SPLOS bill and allowed Atlanta last year to vote on and to pass a local T-SPLOS, which included expansion, a referendum for the expansion of MARTA, the largest expansion since it was first built. So, and it's going to allow MARTA to provide more services. One of the questions that we're going to have to answer is, after that T-SPLOS is over, are we going to extend it? Now, as far as the state putting money into MARTA, you know, we were able in 2015 to get a one-shot deal of state money into MARTA, and if I had more time, I'd finish my answer.
Let's take a question from Keisha.
This question,
I may have to repeat it.
This question is for Ms. Lance Bottoms. She's going to repeat the question for us. Do you have a strategic plan to monitor the steps to mitigate the potential housing bubble in the event that the city of Atlanta grows more rapidly than it already has been? Have you decided upon which measures you will take to mitigate the traffic and the congestion when that happens, when and if that happens?
That was a mouthful. Do you? Was it, do you have a?
I wrote it down, I can repeat it.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
The first part of the question is whether or not I have a strategic plan or steps to monitor the housing bubble. I think I can't read my own writing, that's right, all right. And the answer is yes, and you can see the blueprint for that in the Turner-Field agreement. We appointed a monitor to make sure that there is oversight over all of the development, specifically as it relates to minority participation, and so that we can get a real-time report on what's happening with that project. And I think that model is one that we should attach to all large redevelopment projects within the city. The other part is what measures would I take to mitigate traffic when this happens. And again, it is about being proactive. When we talked about the expansion of MARTA with the T-SPLOS, and Ernie, I'm not sure what side of town you came from today, but we don't have rail into Southwest Atlanta. And what I've said repeatedly is that we run the streetcar into places that don't need it. That is why it's not succeeding. And so I fought for the streetcar to now go past Fort Mac and to turn the corner down Hamilton Road, ending at the Barge Road Park and Ride.
Thank you. Question, Crystal?
Can you? Okay, great, awesome. Okay, so this question is for Mr. Mitchell. Atlanta is a thriving business town. Yet today, we had news that two major companies that do business in Atlanta, Coca-Cola and also AT&T, would lay off Coke 1,200, AT&T 300. Not all Coke jobs necessarily here in Atlanta, but my question is, as companies restructure, try to get leaner, and cut jobs, how would you strategize to retain and attract businesses, large companies, but also at the same time create an environment for entrepreneurs and small businesses as well, and create jobs on that end?
No, very, very, very good question. You know,
I'm going to continue to do what I'm already doing. This fall, I'll have my 6th annual Atlanta Back to Business Conference. It'll be right here, where it's been for the last couple of years, where we connect small business owners to government buyers at every level, the local, state, and federal government. This program has grown, this conference has grown from 1 day to 3 days, where we connect small business owners with the option and with the prospect of creating business-to-business relationships, not only just to government buyers, but also to 60 to 70 private sector companies. Economic development doesn't happen just from the top to the bottom. It happens from the ground up. And when I'm mayor, I'm going to be very supportive of small businesses, making sure that we have an economy that is in fact inclusive in a city where our economy is now becoming global.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Let's start with you again, Ernie.
I want to talk to Kwanzaa for a second. You mentioned that you live in the Old Fourth Ward and how the Old Fourth Ward in downtown has changed so much since you've been in office. The question I have, and there's a question, just to kind of give you a thought of just the mindset of the community. The question, one of the questions I was submitted is, what steps are you willing to take to stop gentrification and the whitewashing of black spaces in Atlanta? Now, that question can be a bit rough, but I guess the question is, talk a little bit about gentrification, what that means, and is it bad? Is it a good thing?
Well, I mean, that's a real question, and it's probably at the core of what we need to be addressing as a city going forward. Equity and inclusion, and how we really preserve the legacy neighborhoods that we have in our city. There's some outstanding people who come from all parts of our city that now have a bad name. And the only people who wanted to, and they've also experienced quite a bit of disinvestment. And what we have to do really going forward is have a non-displacement strategy, which has begun a little bit on the west side, and I'll give some credit to Councilmember Bottoms, but we were already doing it in the Old Fourth Ward. It was a part of the Historic District Development Corporations. We need CDCs who can protect the neighborhoods, community development corporations. They protect the integrity of investment. So when big investors come, they're going to come. You've got to have a strategy to protect the neighborhoods, and the city has to have the will to do it. As mayor, I'll do that. I'll do that because I'll have the power to use all the vacant land, vacant houses. Thousands of vacant houses exist in our city, and apartments. We've got to focus on those and hold them down and revitalize the neighborhoods one by one, house by house, block by block, street by street.
Does any of our panelists have a question in the category of city ethics and public safety?
Yes, I have a question about public safety. Let's ask Mr. Amon on this question about public safety. What would be in your plans as mayor to prevent Atlanta from becoming another Chicago?
So we need to do a series of things. First, we need to pay our police officers fairly. Right now, we have police officers quitting because they're not paid fairly. So we need to give those officers raises so they stay. Second, we need to work with our youth and with our adults that need help, whatever that help may be. We have way too much crime being committed and not enough services going to those who are committing the crimes. So when you look at the juvenile justice system, it does not have the resources it needs to help the youth of Atlanta. That's why education is one of my major focus areas, because until we help people, until we make sure people have jobs, until we make sure people have homes, until we make sure people feel cared about, as best we can, we're going to have continuing issues with public safety. So it starts and ends with the people and with education and the neighborhoods and the police working in partnership with them.
My mic is off, but I'd like to hear each candidate. Let's go down, let's hear from everybody, because this is one of the major issues that I hear from people about crime and their safety. Mr. Bartell, let's start there and work our way down.
Well, the whole public safety design now is built on a corporate public policy by a corporate mayor. It's a heavy-handed public policy, and it dismantles community participation. What we need to establish and have to establish is a community-oriented policing public policy. If we have community-based policing with community-based public policy, we can then establish what's called an urban model of government rather than a corporate model of government. In an urban model of government with community policing, you can have the 12 city council districts be communities that police themselves, because the police will be in the community, of the community, and from the community.
Ms. Lance Bottoms.
Thank you. When I think of our city, I really think of it as a puzzle, and as we talk about all of these issues, especially public safety, we are talking about a piece of the puzzle, and they all rise and fall together. And by that I mean that if we are not addressing our poor education system, if we are not addressing mental health issues, if we are not addressing needed social services, then we will have crime. And part of my platform has been to establish community enhancement centers. And not necessarily a large physical building, but in each community, a place and a space that people can go, and each community is met at its point of need. And so if it's Metropolitan Parkway and there is an issue of substance abuse, then there will be a place that you can go into that community enhancement center and get the services that you need. If it is another area of town and it is job training or GED training, then you can walk into that place and space and get what you need. We can't address our issues one at a time. They have to be addressed holistically.
Thank you, Mr. Eaves.
Public safety is the #1 issue in Atlanta. I get it. My son was robbed at gunpoint the first day of college at Morehouse just under 4 years ago. We need to deal with this in a threefold strategy approach. #1, I am committed to beefing up law enforcement. We're currently at about 1,815 police officers. I'm committed to getting up to 2,000. But that's not the only part of the solution. That's not the only solution. #2, we can do more with the criminal justice system in terms of addressing recidivism, in terms of addressing the mentally ill, who are also part of the calculus of committing crimes in our community. We can deal with the mentally ill by connecting them with folks and providers in the community to address their mental health issues. But #3, the biggest issue is there is $500 million invested in law enforcement and criminal justice in Fulton County and the city of Atlanta. There's a way of doing what's called criminal justice reinvestment, reinvesting the dollars that are going into law enforcement and criminal justice and putting them in areas of prevention, and I'm committed to doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, I appreciate your question, Stan, but the fact of the matter is Atlanta is already Chicago. Atlanta is #10 in the murder rate. Chicago is a larger city, but its rate is number 13 or 14. So we have to be real about this issue. We were up to 2,000 police, now we're down to 1,850. It is standard practice for politicians to come before the public and say, we need more police. But in Atlanta, it's not only needing more police, we're gonna have to do what? Retain the police that we have. And we have not been doing a good job of that. We lose police to the suburbs and rural areas. We need to do two things with our police: retain them, and 2, pay them more and ask them to do more, which is community policing. If we're going to deal with the public safety problem, we're going to have the community partnering with the people. There's no two ways about it. You can't build enough jails. You can't put enough people in prison in order to solve the crime issue.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Yes, thank you. Great question. Atlanta's been great at building buildings, but not good at building people. And that hasn't been our focus. Our human capital development is really where we need to focus. I don't think we need as many more police as we need coaches, mentors, social workers, case managers, the people who help all of us become who we are. We need another generation of coaches. They keep you out of trouble. We don't have the athletic activities for our young people. What are they doing? They're playing video games. And no one loves them. And they believe you can shoot somebody and come back. And they'll come back. We've got to change that whole culture around it. And I think one of the other things that we should do is ensure that when we're focusing on our leadership in our communities, we have street level leadership. In Chicago, all of the gang leaders went to jail. So if you don't have anybody in the streets become whatever. We need people back in the streets who will hold our neighborhoods down. And those who are really from the streets, who know anything about the streets, you know that's the only way you keep a city safe. Police can't do it because they don't know these neighborhoods and they don't know these young people. So we've got to do it together.
Well, Atlanta is experiencing a shortage in police officers, but that's every department across the country. So let's not act like this is just a mutually exclusive issue of Atlanta. Right now, it's just not popular to be a police officer. You know, an officer doesn't want to go to work, and then next thing you know, he's live on Facebook doing his job. And even some of them are abusing their job, and next thing you know, they're in the spotlight. One of the issues that I see is that we are suffering from the Reagan administration. The fact of the matter is that he defunded a lot of mental health institutions, and so because of it, we have people running around here doing things that are just absolutely wrong. The police, I believe that they're focusing it on the wrong way. Atlanta does not have a gang problem. We got a crazy problem. And the fact of the matter is gangs, they operate off of turf, they operate off of money, and they off of drugs. We got people just committing crimes because they didn't have nothing else to do. And so we got to make sure that we nip that in the bud.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you. We've got to do three things. Policing matters. Community participation matters. I grew up in a household where I had a father who was an Atlanta police officer. He was present in the community. He walked a footbeat. My mom, a school teacher right here in APS. My wife is currently a school teacher in APS. If we're going to increase public safety in this city, we've got to start by making sure that our police officers are well paid and have strong morale. And as mayor, I'm not going to have to start doing that. I formed an employee task force that address critical issues that will help improve morale with our police officers, like eliminating compression, providing longevity pay, opportunities for educational benefits as police officers. We gotta also make sure that as we do this, that we are not leaving behind the idea of community policing. My father walked a footbeat. As a council member, I passed legislation requiring all of our police officers to walk a footbeat. And then the last thing, and I know my time is up, and I'm gonna say this, we cannot leave our children behind. We're not Chicago, but we're not careful, we're gonna get there.
Thank you. Mr. Sherman.
First of all, Sam, I want to thank you for the question. I think your question was how do we stop Atlanta from becoming Chicago? And I think that's a loaded question because when you look at what Atlanta is becoming and what we're experiencing right now, that not only speaks to public safety, but it also speaks to corruption. As a federal prosecutor in Chicago, I prosecuted a number of different cases related to child exploitation. Atlanta's a huge hub for sexual trafficking and exploitation. As a federal prosecutor in Chicago, I prosecuted public corruption and put people in jail for bribes. Atlanta's going through that right now. As a federal prosecutor in Chicago, though, I also work with communities to go after corrupt police officers who unlawfully and wrongfully tortured children into confessions and who violated the public's trust. And as a federal prosecutor in Chicago, I also work with police officers and work with communities to make communities safer. And so one of the things that I want to point out is that you've got to have an experience in public safety and working with the FBI and working with the DEA, and you've also got to make sure that we're building up communities. I think we've got to adopt Obama's 21st century police reporting, which includes making sure we're providing essential social services to kids so that we prevent crime. And we can do that through social impact bonds and making sure we're providing enough funding to these critical departments where we provide social services to our children.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Thank you. You know, when you're the last one out of 150, it's hard to be original. When Shirley Franklin and I got elected in 2002, we set a full force of police officers with 2,500 officers. We have yet, 15 years later, to ever reach that. So we need to really think about, is 2,500 really a full force or is it not? If it is, then we need to work really hard to stop the attrition and to keep that force up to where it needs to be. Secondly, Mr. Eves said public safety is our number one issue in Atlanta. I think education is our number one issue in Atlanta. Everything good that happens in the community starts when kids get an education. After that, the rest of it's easy. And I think that the mayor has to be a strong partner with the school system and a strong partner in building communities. And third, just this week, We're gonna see the National Rifle Association visit Atlanta and talk about how they want to have even more liberal gun laws or no gun laws. And here in Atlanta, Georgia, in the state of Georgia, children, criminals, and people who are mentally ill can get guns without even thinking twice. And you just remember a couple of weeks ago, there was a lady who was gunned down in the middle of the street by somebody who was mentally ill and got a gun. You know, we have got to join together as a community to put a stop to that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I know my mic is also going to try to speak up. If anyone else in the audience has a question card, please raise your hands in the air and somebody will come by to retrieve them. Got it? Let's take the next question, Keisha.
Okay, this question is again for Ms. Willard. How will you build trust among constituents and promote better transparency through city operations, spending, and administrative oversight?
Thank you for asking that. I think that that is critical today and has always been critical in government for people to know what their government is doing when nobody's watching. First thing I would do as mayor is do a forensic audit of our books. I think it's really important for me as mayor to make sure that I'm really clear about where the money is, how it's been spent. We have a big reserve, but we all know because we've read the news that you know, some money has been moved from places in the general fund, you know, into the reserves and other places that it shouldn't be. So I think that's the first place. The second thing is I think we can do more about putting our bookkeeping and our contracts and other things online at the appropriate time. You know, there's always a little bit of an issue about making sure that the information is accurate, you know, so that people don't get the wrong idea if we're too hasty about it. But I think we need to do that. And then thirdly, I think, you know, again, when I first got elected, you know, we enacted the strongest ethics law that the city had ever had. I think we need to go back and look again in light of what's transpired and make sure that we've plugged all of the holes in our ethics law so that people can have the confidence about how public officials are going to conduct themselves when they're in office.
Thank you. And since ethics is a hot topic right now, I want to give other candidates an opportunity to respond if you wish.
I'll be glad to.
Let's work our way back here.
First, this past legislative session, I proposed a charter change for the city of Atlanta to create an inspector general who would be able to investigate and refer cases to prosecutors. I was told that City Hall already has an internal auditor who does a great job. If you think they've done a great job, that's a whole nother thing we need to talk about. As the indictments continue to roll down out of City Hall. What I would do as mayor is that I would ask the legislature to pass an inspector general, a charter change. It's not window dressing, it's not politics, it's making sure that the people's money is not stolen by the people they've entrusted it to.
Thank you. Anybody else care to answer that?
Yeah,
Mr. Amon, and we'll take Mr. Mitchell.
If you don't have trust in your government, it's obviously a huge problem. Trust starts at the top.